Hello there, welcome to In My Opinion for West of Dead.
You wake up as a flaming skull guy in purgatory with a hazy memory. You eventually run into a preacher that triggers some memories, bad ones. You know this guy is trouble, and now it's your goal to stop him and hopefully fully regain your memories. The game itself is not heavy on story, but the bits that are there were enough to keep me going till the end. The bits are from character dialogue, and there's also some voice story bits you can collect from falling enemies that help piece some stuff together. You mainly see these when you visit the witch, though what kinda sucks is you can only experience them once. I would like to at least have the option to re-listen to these, letting you hear it all in one go after collecting them all instead of fragmented. At least our lead comes off as a badass with some great lines. What we have here is a roguelike twin stick shooter, so that means you move with the left stick and aim with the right stick. Oh, and that death would be a pretty common thing. You can also take cover behind objects, though they can break. Light also plays a role during combat as you can turn on the lantern, which not only gives a better view of where the enemy is, it also instantly stuns them instead of draining the bar yourself by attacking them. You'll also have an arsenal of different type of weapons, which are rifles, shotguns, revolvers, and pistols. The combat is really enjoyable and does give you that feeling of being in a tense gunfight. Aiming might feel a bit odd since the camera is isometric, but you start to get used to it, especially since the aiming reticule is nice and big in this. I was even making off-screen shots. I will say the aiming reticule can act a little bit funky, but it rarely happened to me, and it was only with the rifles. Speaking of the guns, I like how each of them feel, such as the shotguns, which may have short reach, but you can see and feel the punch they pack. I also like how the rifles do give you two options to shoot, be it right away or holding the shot, which the reticule shows you when you're at your max, which gives off more damage. Then you got some abilities that have been found and picked up to help during these fights. You have stuff like an axe you can throw, being invulnerable for a few seconds, a portable stunlight, and more. Though these do have a cooldown timer each time you use them, and you only take 2 at a time, so there is some balance. There's also charms that you can equip that have special properties like gaining some health back after getting hit while in cover. As I mentioned, there is a cover system that is destructible, but the game gives you a good visual indication of it crumbling. So you know when to move, and if all the cover spots are gone, don't worry as they do spawn back. You just have to wait, which felt pretty fair. You're also allowed to slide over cover spots if you want to gain some distance from your enemy quickly or get closer, which kinda adds to the high tense nature of these battles. Taking cover is also important since your bullets reload automatically, though if you're out of cover it's much slower compared to in cover, giving you another factor to think about in battle. Only problem I have with the cover system is that when you're trying to walk away from cover, it feels like you're slowly unsticking yourself, which in turn makes you a much easier target. Yeah, you can roll, but sometimes during the heat of the moment you can forget to, and just on instinct try to run away. Speaking of rolling, that's another factor that can be a huge help, as not only do you gain more ground by doing it, but if you do it at just the right time, the game will slow down time, letting you dodge and even gain a little extra time to do something which can be a lifesaver in this game. Guess I should talk about the roguelike elements the game has. Well, one aspect is you always start with base stats. As you explore the map, you run into upgrade pedestals with usually 3 different upgrades, though sometimes it's just 2. These 2 things can either upgrade your health/melee damage, firepower, or ability to recharge time and its damage. I feel as long as you search the whole map before you leave that there is enough pedestals to make you strong enough to hold your own against your enemies and the final boss. Though remember, these are not permanent upgrades, as once you die you lose these stat boosts and start from square one. Though have no fear, since there are certain things that do become permanent. As you may have noticed, as you kill enemies, they drop these white balls known as sin points, which after every map you can spend at the witch's store. These permanent unlocks are things such as a health flask that can be upgraded at least 3 times so you can heal yourself in battle. The game also refills your flask and your health when you reach these witch sections, which is really helpful. The other things you can buy is being able to have 4 random different weapons at the start whenever you die and start again. You will also have the option to unlock weapons and charms so they have a chance to show up in the maps, and the game will give you a little description of what they do. Though some of these will only show up in the witch's store when they are dropped as memories by random enemies, but I found these drops to happen a decent amount, so there was a good amount of things to unlock with my sin. I actually really like some of these guns and find them pretty powerful. There's a rifle that speeds up its shot to basically turn into a chain gun, a shotgun that always does insane critical damage as long as you're in cover, another rifle that with each consecutive shot on one enemy does ridiculous damage, and so much more. Don't try to save up your sins since they will be gone after you leave the witch's area, so just spend it all there. The maps you explore are randomly generated, so you can't always depend on things being in the same spot. While traveling through the maps, you can run into other things besides the pedestals, like chests that could contain a new weapon or even a higher level version of your current weapon, which is a good thing, since higher level equals more power. You could also run into shops that you can spend some cash that you've been getting from killing enemies. Some of these maps do have some boss fights which can be rather fun and challenging, and the plus of fighting them is to get new powers that can help you get to new areas to either get some weapons or unlock new maps in the game such as the graveyard and canyon. Now these are much harder maps if you want to test out your skills, but if you really don't want to bother with them, then you can stick to the other paths. All in all, there are 10 maps you can end up at, 11 if you have the DLC like I do. I will say it's best to get the Wendigo power in the Hunt map, since the power you get lets you teleport between portals in the map, which lets you move around so much faster. The game also saves each time you get to these portals, and while there's no manual saving, there is enough portals around to not make it a headache. Also, once you defeat a boss in a map, you never have to face them again, and instead you have a chance to run into an outlaw spirit, which is kind of like a sub-boss, that can give you memories to unlock and some more sins. As you make progress in the game, you'll get to new chapters with Fall and All. Once you reach, I believe, the second chapter, Lost Souls will start to show up. These are souls that will give you a good amount of sin, money, and even a weapon. The thing is, these souls will create a burden on you, making you take way more damage, but you can get rid of this burden by just killing 6 enemies. So it's basically like a risk-reward situation since you're easier to kill, and remember, if you die you lose all your cash and sin points and start from the beginning map. I do appreciate that you're able to get rid of this debuff, since I believe some roguelikes sometimes make you keep the debuff no matter what through the whole run. After you complete an entire run and defeat the final boss, there is another step, as doing this unlocks righteous souls, which act like the lost souls, but this time you have to find 3 through a run and do an extra step in the final boss, thus unlocking the true ending. Now, while the righteous souls location is random all the time, there are blatant hints as to what direction you should take. Basically follow the blue flame and pay attention to your character's dialogue and you should be good. I love the cel shaded stylized look of this game. It really makes everything stand out, even with how light is shown. Since you'll be dying a lot, you will see these maps plenty of times, but each has its distinct look, with spots like the swampy bayou, the decrepit town with guns coming out the buildings, or the dark and rainy cemetery. Each map also has different looking enemies to take out, and the bosses you do face have pretty good designs. I also love our lead character's design, since it reminds me a lot of Ghost Rider minus the bike and chains. When it comes to voice acting, the only person who has one is our lead, and he's voiced by Ron frickin' Perlman, who does a good job making him sound gruff and badass. I'm playing the PS4 version on my PS5, and the game runs real smooth. I never felt a hitch in frame rate. However, I did run into some tech issues. The game crashed on me twice, and saving just stopped working. While this is annoying, it was pretty rare for me. Also, if the game stops saving, then just quit right away, as it will at least pick up where your last autosave was, and will go back to normal.
Serpents, forbidden fruit, angels with sword. It looked like a house of worship, but God had no place here.
As I've said many times before, roguelites are more miss than hit for me. But this one goes to the hit pile for sure, even with its tech hiccups. Its cel-shaded look is eye-catching, and even though you'll die a lot, the combat is addictive, especially with the creative guns, that you'll find yourself trying to reach that end no matter what. I personally spent around 8 hours to get the true ending, and the replay value mainly comes for trying a harder difficulty, being sure you collect all the memories, and if you want to collect every item from the witch. Besides that, there's not much else. I say if you're in the mood for a roguelike that's not too punishing and has some style, then head over to the West of Purgatory. I hope you enjoy my thoughts in this game, and for gamers' sake, keep gaming.